welcome to Vivacious Speaks, the New American Revolution. I do believe, we always say that the evolution of our consciousness is the real revolution. So today we will work on our conscience. We have Mr. Dontaye Carter here with us, a mover and shaker. But what I like about him more is that the intelligent love that he gives out to galvanize people is everything we need today if we're going to be a successful society in 5 or 10 years. We want a future for our children. And he agreed to come today to help us do that. Hello, Mr. Carter. How are you?
How you doing, V?
I am all the way, feeling good today.
Good.
Magical. So tell us a little bit about you and your work and what you do.
Man, I really don't even know where to start with it. I think, I went to HBCU, went to FAM, studied journalism, and I was on a nice run climbing up the ladder. Reported across the United States, worked as an anchor, worked as a reporter here in the Atlanta area, and I felt like I kind of hit a wall in 2016, and I needed something different, and ended up going to work over at the Fulton County DA's office, and it was tough because I think that's where I saw in real life my first case of injustice, where I wasn't reporting on it. I was there in the midst of it, involving 4 young boys, and then being accused of murder, and the victim's mother took the stand, and of course, whenever it deals with race, these things get elevated. But the victim's mother took the stand and said, my son came to me in my dreams and said, you got the wrong people. And I remember sitting there watching the prosecutor talk to the DA, and he was trying to figure out how it got to that point of the victim's mother making that statement, the judge calling for a mistrial, and it hit me just, thinking that at the crux of this are still 4 young boys all under the age of 16, right? And it challenged me to kind of look at the system differently. That prosecutor, the DA asked the prosecutor if she had reviewed what police gave her, and she said, no, I didn't. They told us these were the guys, they arrested them. They didn't check the boys' cell phones, locations, went back and tested it, found out the boys weren't in the area, and one of the experts made a statement along the lines of they would have been flashed to run there, murder this guy, and disappear. And so just seeing that, when those guardrails aren't there to protect the young boys and girls in our community, that these things do happen, and it really forced me to take a hard look at where I saw my life going and the good that I wanted to put out into the world.
That's so awesome. And I'm going to tell you what excites me a lot is when I see that little baby light up and she see her super dad. It's like, that's my dad, Little girls need that so much. And I think our society has come to a place where almost families dissolved. In some places is remade. But I think every child needs every parent, So, what made you do that super dad thing? that was just so awesome to me.
Well, it's I'm really big on community, right? Community is the backbone of this country, and the backbone of community is family, and so for me, ensuring that I fulfill that role is kind of what got me into it. And so I sit back and I look so much at my wife, right? Her being the strong, independent business owner, doctor, huge women's advocate that she is, but also being the support I need at home, the loving wife, the supportive mother. I mean, those things to me are just powerful. And that was part of why, I sat down. I was even thinking about writing that book, My Daddy and My Little Girl, right? Because it's all about putting this journey and what family truly means in a context. And as I started to do that, I also started to look around my community, and I saw what needs were there and what needs weren't. And in the course of seeing that, I had asked my daughter's principal at her school. I said, what do you need? What do you need? And she said, we've been able to get the girls' club solidified. She said, but we gotta have a dad's club, a super dads. We had it back in the day. We haven't been able to restart it. And I was just like, hey, I get in there. I'll do it. We get rolling. And it's crazy because, the kids, they see that S on your chest and they light up, and it's, you're Kylie's dad. And Kylie's like, yep, that's my dad. And it's like, but I know they need it, right? Because I grew up in a single parent working class house. I didn't have that at home, but I did have my best friend, Derek, his dad, Mr. Robinson, was there. He was showing up, and he was somebody that I could see, that I could emulate. And so I know the power of just seeing it, right? And seeing it done well. And I know that I may not see it now. I may not see it, today, but I'll see it in the future, kind of like the other day I went up to this Sandy Springs Middle School where we had a bunch of our fifth graders that just started sixth grade. And I showed up, and they were like, Super Dad's here. And I was just like, what up, fellas? They're like, we thought you forgot about us. But it's being that consistent force, right? For good, consistent force of love, whatever that consistent force is, being consistent at it. Because our kids need it. They got to see it. And I think that the more they see it, the better it's going to help to impact our community in that positive light. I think a lot of people sometimes forget, right, that although you may not see it as much portrayed in the media, like, it's we're still a community of families, right? Like,
Yes.
it's still happening. Like, there's still more men marrying women than there are single mothers. It's just not talked about. But stat-wise, it's there, I mean, you look in the black community, 85% of black men are still marrying black women. They're still having babies. Over 70% of them are in the households with the children that they fathered with their wives. And so I just think we gotta just be more vocal about it. And that's why I want to share it, because that's what's important to me. I don't look at my community and see a community that's been thrown away. I don't look at my community and see what the narrative always states. And so I just want to let folks know that, there's a lot of good that comes from here. And we're going to stand up, we're going to fight for our kids, and we're going to show them that, hey, even if things aren't the way they need to be right now, they can get better in the future. And if you need a blueprint, I'm your guy.
Yeah, and that's the big thing. That's really the big thing, giving our blueprint. But I'm going to just say one more thing about this Super Dad, but I just love it so much. But one day I looked up, and there was a whole lot of Super Dads. Like, I was like, yes. So you just have this gift, or whatever it is, I think it's your gift, of galvanizing people. So was it hard getting, because people, they don't say very good things about dad. How did you get those dads to come? And I mean, they were being super dads that I had seen. It wasn't just like for a day. And that's like, if I can watch it on social media. Social media is way more powerful than we know.
Mm-hmm.
My sister always said, you can't have friends, Marlene, off social media. But that's where all my friends come from right now. But it's, like, I could feel and I can see and feel the uniqueness in those dads standing up there. They were proud to be where they are and being that super dad.
And it is hard work. It is consistency, because it's not just dads showing up, right? It's building a community where dads feel like, okay, this is us here. And I think that the picture that's been painted for far too long is that we we protect and provide. And yeah, we protect and provide, but we also nurture. And I think that so much of that has been resigned to just the mothers, the grandmothers, and the women in the lives of the children. And that's as much of a part of our role as it is theirs. And so I think that although it was difficult getting going, once the dads understood what the call to action is, they're like, are we pulling up? It's pull-up season. And so the buy-in is they know that they're not just impacting their child's life, but they're impacting our community. I mean, we got over 534 kids at that school. Us showing up makes an impact. And so you can't talk about a child's behavior, right? And a parent's not there. But when the parents are there, that impact runs off. And so I got tremendous respect for the educators, for the work that they do, because to me, you know, that's extremely important. But it's just different, you know. We're at a Title I school. We got a high poverty rate, but we're there, and we're gonna keep being there. And we're I call it a hard reset, right, for our community, and really giving the kids something to identify with. And you know, we walk up and we're opening the doors to see their faces light up, to see them saying, "Oh, y'all are super dads," and you know, don't let us start feeling ourselves and put our capes and masks on. You know, that's a whole different level. But
I love it.
you know, it's I think it's different when you just see it, right? It's different when the kids come up, they give you a hug, they tell you thank you. Like even the other day when I was up at the middle school and just seeing those kids' faces light up, and I mean, the fact that the second sentence was, "We thought you forgot about us." Nah, but it shows that they're fighting for that sense of what they belong to, and you could tell it was a reset for them in terms of the consistent showing up, and that's what it is. So we talking about
real.
yeah. So we talking about building community. That's what it is. It's showing up. When you asked me off camera about, you know, where did the crowds come from? The crowds come from showing up. You know, I think when people understand that you've got their back, they're going to show up for you. And it's having the courage to do it without expecting anything in return. And that's where you really start to see that impact being made.
That's so awesome. And you know, you said something, as a woman, I want to say this, that we're not only there for protecting and providing, but that's the main thing we look for. You know, like if something come up, we're going to jump behind our man, right? Like, handle that. You know? And that's what we expect that. But the nurturing part, I guess that's what we all were just awing over when you wrote that beautiful paper or post about your wife, you know, that nurturing part that we don't expect. And when you're getting it and you don't expect it, that's so awesome.
Yeah. Well, you know, I think it's unless a man has been damaged traumatically, it's in us to love. You know, it's in us, that emotional side is there. And sometimes, even through that trauma, right, we can get back to that place, but it's ensuring that we're whole. And you know, I had a running joke a lot. I'm like, man, if they couldn't deal with the traumatized Dontaye before therapy, I don't know what they're gonna do with a brother after he done went and got himself whole. But that's the goal, right? It's I gotta kind of fix what's broken inside of me so that I can be the love that I want to see out there. And it's not easy. I'm not saying it's easy. I'm not saying the things that have happened were right. What I am saying is if we want a different world, we're gonna have to be the difference, and that's gonna take some work on our end. And that's what I had to learn to do consistently, so that I can show up for my wife, show up for my daughter, show up for my community, and show up for myself the way I need to show up. And I think that's the most powerful part about it.
So everybody know this smooth, soft Dontaye. They've got this guy. Right? But Dontaye, you are a force to be reckoned with. When I see you out in the community, it's like, ain't no touching that guy. He gonna get done what he wants to get done politically. You know, you're there. You know, we were at an event, and I was just watching you because now I get to see you. You know, you was my Facebook friend, but now I get to see you in action, in reality. And I mean, you were that force. You know, like if this is it, I'm gonna push it. I'm gonna make it happen. So, you know, thinking about we have to change the direction we're going. We have to begin to think differently. We have to build family, build community again, and you definitely have a place in that. But the big thing is to get people to care about each other again. So I'm gonna go back to the Super Dads just a little bit, but I see it in everything that you do. You know, you bring people together in a caring, in caring for each other's situation. You know, I'm gonna even speak of the if I can, I'm gonna do it anyway, but I'll say if I can. When I saw in your post too that they were all gonna watch, you know, we are gathering to watch the. I'm a different part of the Democratic Party, but the Democrats in my county, they were coming together to watch the debate. And when I went there, I said, I bet he had something to do with putting this together, because it was so many different people from so many walks of life. They're really into one another. What's the secret? We can't just have it right here in this little community here. What's some of that secret? How do you get people to come together like that?
You know, man, you just want me taking it back every time, huh? Take it back, take it back, take it back. I think, I don't know if there's a secret sauce. What I know is in 2018, I had attorney Gerald Griggs reach out to me, let me know that he was representing some of the victims in the R. Kelly case. And this was, at this time, it wasn't even really a case, right? It was just claims that had come to him, and he started investigating them. And I remember when he emailed everything over to me, and I'm looking through the file, and I'm kind of talking out loud. My wife's in the room, but I'm talking out loud like, da da da. I don't even know what to charge for this. He ain't charged, yada, yada, yada. And I put a comment out, or a question out to my wife, and what resonated with me was her silence. And I was like, babe, you good? What's going on? You good? You good? And she said, man, she was like, at some point, you know, we need the men in our lives to act like they know that there's a problem, because there is a problem. We need our fathers, our husbands, our brothers. We need all y'all to act like y'all know that there is an abuse of power that's happened with predators around these young children, around these young women taking advantage. We need y'all to own that. And she said, the fact that you're helping me to raise a young black girl, and you even asked me that question, bothers me. And it hit me. And I was like, dang, like, for me to be raised in a house with a single mom, for me to have a sister and still have these blind spots, it hit me. And as I started to learn, right, what I found is the laws that were written to protect women in this country aren't sufficient. And so just because somebody got off in trial doesn't mean they weren't guilty. It just meant that these laws weren't sufficient in protecting women. And so it was crazy because, you know, I'm getting these international awards for the communications work that we did with getting the word out and this R. Kelly case. And I'm thanking my wife, and folks are like, why are you thanking her? You did the work. But I'm like, you know, had she not challenged me, to do this inner work that I needed to do, I wouldn't have got there. I couldn't have got there. But it was because of that challenge. But what's so crazy is by her challenging me to see outside of my world, to see her world, it forced me to see myself in a way that I had never had before. And so when you talk about bringing people together, it was that challenge of seeing outside of myself. And so you're never going to unify a community if you can't see the struggles that each and every part of that community faces, right? And so if we understand that we've got a system that's attacking women's rights right now, and you're not actively trying to understand that struggle, there's no way that you can ever unify. If you're not trying to understand how suppressing votes or erasing African American history impacts that population, right? How do you relate? How do you help to build community? And so it's us being able to understand that there are things happening, and at some point we've got to take a step back and see it for what it is, and not what we want to, and not what we perceive, you know. And so I think that's what's helped me, right? Is me fighting to take that step back so I can see things for what it is, and not what I think it is or it should be. And it's consistently taking that step back. And so when we walk into these spaces, it's me understanding that while I've got issues with police brutality, while I've got issues with voter suppression, while I've got issues with the erasure of Black history, while I've got issues with some of these Black codes that are still on the books, right? There are things that other communities care about, whether it's inflation, whether it's immigration. There are a whole lot of other issues going on, and I've got to be just as tied to them other issues as I am my issues, because that's what's going to bring people together so that we can be that force for good and we can fight for change.
Since we're really not on the subject, but
you bringing something else up on me?
I'm getting, yeah, I am. I'm really being stimulated right now, and it's a good thing. But I want to talk about. Let me tell you something. I'm the first one. They'll tell you whenever we get a quote unquote bad young Black boy at work, they know Mama Val, don't touch him. Don't touch him, because I feel like he's already prejudiced against. You already have this against him, and I'm going to protect him. Yeah. I'm going to protect him from the system. And he's your patient. I don't care what he say, where he's from in life, what he does, but he's as much your patient as anybody else in this room, and you're gonna take care of him. That's my statement. Yeah. So what I'm saying is, I said that to say it. Let me say, are we fair in holding our community responsible for their actions? In the manner of where you are in the community and doing the things that you do, we'll be mad at the police, do everything if we think he killed our children. Our children killing our children every day. I know people are going to be mad at me for saying this, but this is a subject that I feel like we need to deal with. We don't, that mama who the police killed her son is crying as hard, and her loss is no different from the mama your son killed. These mamas lost their sons, but it's almost as if as a community we ignore that.
Do you think we ignore it though?
Yeah, I do. We don't cry out with that mom. We don't have marches with that mom. We might get some teddy bears sometimes.
Well, I think, so what I'll say is this. I think there's an understanding, not just in our community, but in this nation, that we got a gun problem. I think the things that are hyper-focused on, right, or when Black kids kill other Black kids, when those same things are happening in other communities as well. But because of this system of racism, what's been hyper-focused and what's conditioned us to look at is what's happening in our community. But I think what's different is, if Ray Ray shoots JoJo, right? Ray Ray goes to prison. Ray Ray's being held accountable. It didn't bring JoJo back, but Ray Ray's going to prison. Whereas with these police cases, the police, a majority of the time, they're not even making, these cases aren't even making it to the grand jury, right? For a grand jury to even look at and make decisions.
Exactly.
And so I think that goes into it. And so I think if people saw the accountability, right? If they saw, these officers whether it's going before a grand jury, going before a jury of voters, because that's essentially what they are, citizens in the county, that would be different. But the fact that they aren't, I think that's where you saw the explosion of anger in between, Trayvon Martin, George Floyd, Philando Castile. Those are where those things blow up, is because you can tell that there's pressure that's applied in some areas of accountability that's not being applied in others. And I think that what frustrates me is, our community still, we got Fourth Amendment rights too. We have a right to question why we're being arrested. We have a right to ask those questions. And you see it take place in other communities, but the same grace isn't given us when we ask certain questions. And I think we just got to be honest about the foundation of this country, what has happened, and it's so much that goes into that. But again, that's why I'm working on both ends of this spectrum. I'm in the schools saying, hey, I know that I owe my community a whole lot here, so I'm going to be here so that I can help these young men to paint a different picture, right? Or these young boys as they become men to paint a different picture. But I also got to be that voice on the outside that's saying, hey, this school ain't getting the same resources as other schools, right? This community's being over-policed. Like, our community leaders, we gotta stand in both. We can hold both sides accountable. I don't see anything wrong with holding both sides accountable, because that's what gives the community hope, right? Is knowing that, the same energy that's being pushed on JoJo is the same energy that's going to be held up to the mayor, whose police department is acting a fool, right? And it's, at the end of the day, it's about being that voice for the voiceless. And I'm a big Bible guy, right? Some of them early commands is what? Do justice, take care of the poor, take care of the widow, take care of the fatherless, like, and that's what I walk in, is taking care, and doing justice is there being equity and accountability, and also think reliability, because people got to know that you're going to show up. And so that's just the way I look at these things. I know there's bad, I know there's evil out there, and I know even in our community of victims, we can sometimes become the oppressor, and they got to be held accountable too.
Exactly. And when I speak of accountability, look, I think that police killing children, police hurting people, should be held at a higher accountability than the little boy who has always been, and I'm not making excuses, please don't get me wrong, than the little boy who's never counted for anything in life, never had any value until somebody illegally puts a gun in his hand. Now he feels like this gives me power. I've been beat down for so long. That's not the same position. I'm not meaning the system at all. I mean the community, holding the community accountable. Like, I'm an older woman. I should want to go to my community and know that I am protected in that community. I should be able to feel safe, and that's the accountability. Like when we came home, if we had something my daddy didn't buy, because my daddy was a single parent. If we had something daddy didn't buy, you better tell where you got it. Oh, my friend gave it to me. Let's go bring it back.
Yeah.
So, I mean, we holding each other accountable in our community. If there was a young lady that I spoke with. She has an organization now, but she said her son was in the house and he was dealing dope. He was in a gang all his life, and she never knew.
So she never knew.
That's what she said. I said, you didn't have no clue, no sign. So what is that saying to me? And that's what I'm saying. Would it even be better for us if parents hold parents without them getting shot? but parents hold, that part was a little joke, but parents holding parents accountable, like us holding each other accountable, and understanding that all of the mamas are broken when their child is taken away, whether he's the child that got the gun and felt some power and kill somebody, or think he's going to get material things, because now that's where we have all our children's mind is what I'm going to get, how I'm going to be rich, I want shoes like this one and all of that stuff. So how do we hold ourselves accountable?
Well, I think that also comes down to who we elect, right? And I say who we elect because, again, kind of going back to the point that I was making earlier, if we know there's obviously a gun problem, right? How do we ensure, right, that we have a better grasp on who gets guns and where these guns are going, right? Because the reality is they're coming from somewhere, right? That's just the reality. They're coming from somewhere. We can talk about what's going on in our community, but if we don't have better gun reform laws, I'm not saying take everybody's guns away. I'm saying hold gun owners accountable, for one. And then if we're talking about communities that don't have the proper resources, like I live in a community that doesn't even have a rec center. We got all these kids in the community and there's no rec center. What do you think these kids are going to do without a rec center? You know what I'm saying? It's about being proactive. You go into some neighborhoods and you'll see a park on every corner, right? They're going to ensure that the children are taken care of. Then you go into other communities and you might have one park and it's on the other side of town. And so it's us understanding that everybody in the community is paying taxes. But if only one part of that community is reaping the benefits of support, now you're almost creating that environment that you wanna push back on, right? And this is something that I brought up even to our city council folks is, to know that COVID increased homelessness in our community, right? With people getting kicked out and our local government receiving all this CARES money, and it didn't go to keeping people in their homes. It went to helping to build a police training center. Like, we just gotta be honest. You can't ignore these kids for 10, 11, 12, 13, 14 years and then get mad because those conditions harden them to the point of them kicking in your door with a gun. Like, we just gotta be proactive in this, in how we move. And that's what I think is being missed, especially when it comes to our community. Everybody wants to talk about the end result as though there weren't ways that we could have intervened beforehand. And that's why I've been intentional about being in that elementary school, because if a child fails second grade, they're already preparing, oh man, he done failed second grade, he probably gonna be in prison, or she probably gonna be in prison. So we're gonna start putting money towards this prison bed that they're probably gonna be in, right? Instead of saying that there's, what can we do on this front end to ensure that they make it to be a productive citizen? And I just think that's twofold. And I think that, especially when it comes to black communities, I think we don't holler until things get bad, right? So we don't raise a cane about little JoJo carrying that gun around until he shoots somebody, right? No, we need to deal with it beforehand. Same issue with the police. We don't need to wait until, a police with a troubled past shoots somebody. No, how do we get proactive on the front side? And I think that's kind of where I am with these issues is, like, yeah, we see the end result. We're frustrated with the end result. How do we change things from the beginning going forward to ensure that these things don't keep happening? And again, there are ways for us to do that. It's not just saying we're going to build a police training center for the crime that's going to come. It's no, how do we get proactive in lowering crime? We know if people got jobs, if people are making money, they're less likely to do things, right? So what are we doing to bring better jobs into our community? How do we identify jobs that may fit the skill set of our community better than others? How do we get proactive in that thinking? And I think that's a lot of what's being missed from these conversations, is that proactive approach.
Very good, very good. Because I felt a certain kind of way when I didn't feel safe in my neighborhood by the people who should be taking care of me.
And
that is young guys.
Mm-hmm.
But you just brought to mind one of my favorite people in the whole wide world. And he was this young guy that I had, and he lived in a hotel.
Mm-hmm.
He stole cars, and I am not giving him right for any of this. He stole cars for a living, and when he would sell cars, this is what happened. You know, he didn't have a place to stay. He couldn't stay with whoever his mama had let him stay. So he would steal the cars, get money, pay a drug addict to go rent his room for as long as he had that money, and then that's how he survived.
Mm-hmm.
And he will always be one of my most favorite people in life, and that was because he was such a wonderful little boy.
Mm-hmm.
And I defended him. There was an incident that happened one day, and I promise you this boy could be Mike Tyson, okay? Because he really hurt the other child, but the other child offended him and he defended himself.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, hurt him and he defended himself. And it became such a big deal. But anyway, I protected him because they wanted him to go to jail, and I said, no, he don't go to jail. Assault was the other person,
Mm-hmm.
And they still mad at me over that one.
Yeah.
But I think understanding, and you just bringing things to mind, you're giving me a lot of enlightenment here. Knowing where he came from, he did carry a gun, but he was stealing people's cars.
Yeah.
I tried to make him understand you could die stealing somebody's car and thinking you're going to pay your rent.
Yeah.
It's not like that stuff was okay.
Yeah.
It's not okay.
Yeah.
So how do we get past the fear of boys? I always say boys, but I'm sure there's girls too, but that's where I lean, okay? I don't know why, but that's where I lean. How do we get past the fear of the community to be that upcoming power that empowers the community?
So I want to start by first saying it bothered me to hear you say you didn't feel safe as just a leader in my community. You know what I'm saying? Just knowing that there's a woman in my community that doesn't feel safe, that's a problem, right? And it shows lack of leadership, because we should be creating environments where you feel safe, where you know what I'm saying?
Right.
I'm going to be okay. And I think that I bring this point up because I think, going into your question, we're not raising up the leaders that we need, right? If our young men, our young boys, right, if they're not filled with hope, if they can't find their purpose, if they can't live out their passions, that's what they default to, right? It's a default mechanism. You think about what Simba was when Mufasa died, right? He ran off and he ran around eating worms and ran around, and the Rafiki had to come and get him, right, and tap the water and remember who you are. You know what I'm saying? And we need more of those leaders reminding our children who they are. And I bring up that point because, gosh, what was it? Earlier this year, me and my little girl went down to the National Archives in Clayton County. And I started learning how to pull the old census. And it was crazy because it wasn't until I pulled that census that I realized that one of the first men to hold my grandmother as a newborn was born a slave in this country. And I was looking back and I was like, man, this is bananas, because it's telling you the household, who are all the children in the household. And so I'm continuing to go back. And so I was like, wow, John Phillips. Then I found out that he was a slave on the Phillips plantation in Alabama. And I was like, I got to go look up the Phillips plantation. Guess where the Phillips plantation was?
Where?
It was on the other side of the Edmund Pettus Bridge.
Oh, wow.
And so that area.
Wait, on the other side, meaning the side we marched from or the side we marched to?
The side we marched to.
Okay.
The side that John Lewis and them were going to register these folks as voters and make sure, because they made up such a large number in that city, but they had no political power.
Yeah, right.
And I said, wow. So John Lewis, Dr. King, all them folks that would, Dr. King wasn't there for Bloody Sunday, but all them folks that got to put this whole nation on display because they were trying to march across that bridge to register them voters. Them folks they were going to reach out to were relatives of mine. And it's crazy because I think so many of us, we know we're in Atlanta or we know we're in Orlando, but because we don't understand the history, we don't know the root of where we came from. And so when I saw that these folks had enough love for their community that they went back, they could have gone back and said, oh man, them old sharecroppers, they poor, they broke, they ain't got nothing going on. They, you know what I'm saying? But now they went back. And they said, we're going to try to change it. And so what it reminded me of is we're always going to have an option, right? Regardless of how we see the community. We can either go back to be that change for good, or we can decide, you know what, I'm just going to move out, move to another side of town, raise my family and be good. What that showed me is that just moving away and going away to be good isn't good enough. And so I can't complain about people being scared of these boys in my community if I know they ain't got anybody there for them, and I refuse to show up for them. Because, you know, this book that I read, this Bible that I read, says, hey man, if you're going to call yourself a Christian, you're going to call yourself a disciple, you're going to call yourself a follower of the way, whatever you're going to call yourself, if you're not living out these principles, what are you doing? And so I think that going back to your question, we got to have leaders like me that go back into these communities, because without that, these young men don't have an idea of what they can replicate. All they're being fed is hip hop. All they're being fed is reality shows, these dances on TikTok, Instagram. Like, that's what we're leaving them to. But if we show up, now they got a different picture, right?
Right.
Now they got a different vision of what they can be. Because see, what they see me as is, right? They see me as a business owner in their community, a guy that's politically engaged. I mean, we've had lawmakers coming into these schools, and they don't come into these schools. But I wanted these kids to understand what this system is, and it's so crazy because the bulk of my kids are 4th and 5th graders. And they were like, man, I don't know why you bringing so-and-so in here. These kids don't understand that. One of the first questions the kid asked one of the state senators that I brought in was how come his parents had to pay property taxes. Now, for a kid that don't understand what's going on,
Right.
he knows enough to know, man, them property taxes get on my daddy, on my mama nerve, man. I know how they respond when them property taxes come in. And that's why they asked them that question. And that's why I think it's important that even at that young age, we're helping them to understand this world so that they can be the best version of themselves, and they can help our community to be the best version of itself.
I think this has been just wonderful conversation. I'm seeing things differently. I've definitely grown, and I'm gonna meditate on some of this. And I did leave the community when I felt like my safety was threatened. You know, I used to fight them when I was young. You know, I didn't walk off, but I left that community because I can't fight young boys no more. When
Yeah.
old people fall, their bones break and they die.
But you shouldn't have
I'm
to
not gonna
either.
do that. I shouldn't have to. I
Yeah.
should be protected by the boys who were trying to hide out to hurt me.
Mhm.
And the worst part about that for me was, I know that if they would have come at me, I would have defended myself.
Mhm.
And to know that I hurt my son, I maybe have been the one to live, but I couldn't live with me after that.
Yeah.
It put me in a very, very bad situation.
Mhm.
And that's why I left. And I'm telling you the honest truth. We got to move quickly.
Yeah.
Because if we don't move quickly to change things, we're going to fall off the cliff. And I just thank God for having you and a man such as your caliber,
Yeah.
with your character, to be out here building a future for our children.
Well, I want you to know this. I was one of them kids. And had it not been for Mr. Robinson and me seeing, and I just be frank and honest, me just seeing a black man love and love as deeply as he did, like that's what helped me, seeing my coach, Coach Shavers, love as deeply as he did. It helped me to see the other side of this. And as much as I hated my upbringing, I appreciate it right now because it's because of what I went through that I could see these kids. Like if I wasn't at one point lost, there's no way that I could find them. But it's because I went through all that I can look over there and know how powerful my presence is. And that's why, you know, I used to hate when I used to be in, you know, when I used to hold down these corporate jobs and they would say, Dontaye, you're different, Dontaye, you're different. No, I'm not different. I just had somebody invest in me and I'm just trying to put that investment back into the community.
And such a humble man, because they didn't just call you for R. Kelly's situation. They don't just call this an ordinary man, but that impresses me too, that you could have said a whole lot of stuff about yourself. I read about you. You could have said a whole lot of stuff about yourself, but your important thing was to build community, and I want to thank you. What is it that you going to leave us with? I just want to thank you for being here. This is a very valuable conversation.
I appreciate it. You know, just what I think what resonates with me now is just never lose hope. I think it's so easy in this world because we're getting hit. Politically, they're throwing everything at us. Economically, we're feeling it. It's so much going on, right? But it's something about finding our faith in these moments that grounds us. Because what inspires me is not about who we are when we're going through the ish, but who we are when we come out of it.
Yes.
And that's what I hope that people can take away from your show is it's not about where we are, it's where we can be. And knowing that this moment isn't the end. Because these people that understand that can ground themselves in it, become the change creators that our community needs, that our political systems need, that this world needs, because they understand how to change it, because they've been able to walk through it.
Thank you for being here.
Thank you for having me.
That was awesome.